Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Kirchner.
There you go. Okay, so you know what that means. You know, when you get an introduction like that, it means you're old, okay? As I was listening to it, I was like, yeah, boy, that was a long time ago. So first, thank you, Melinda, for doing what I usually do at a talk like this, and that's getting to know you guys. Well, and hanging out for a day helped. I asked a lot of you, how did you get trained in what brought you into this, and you know, who do you work with? But I love the grouping. So basically what that showed me, Melinda, is that I'm talking to the world. I mean, there's no persona out there. It's a little bit of everything. So some of the things that I had thought I might skip over kind of quickly, I'm not going to. I'm going to go on and put some time into them because I know we have some novice facilitators, and we'll talk about that a little bit. So any time that you give a talk like this, you have to recognize that this is a team effort, and rarely will you see something around facilitation that is one person has done it. It's always a host of individuals that have worked together and then have come up with products. And so I could have given you 5 pages, but I listed the ones that contributed most to the work that I'll be presenting today. So what I would like to do today is start with a little bit of an introduction, and then, and this is something when I talked to Melinda and Joel about what would be helpful, or they thought would be helpful, was that some of the different models that we can use. I got a feeling for one that was very commonly used in the work of practice facilitation, but there's others out there that we've used with larger healthcare systems, and so we're going to go over some of the different ways that you can apply facilitation, and then focus on some of the tools and processes that can be helpful when you're out there doing it, okay, and you're in the real world. Finally, end up with I'm going to spend a good bit of time on documenting and evaluating facilitation. And you might go, why would you do that? Well, I'll tell you. Just hang on, okay? We'll go through why you'd want to do that as well. And then finally, I want to talk a little bit about how you work your way out of a job or into a different job. So yeah, look at that, boo. Hey, unemployment rate is 3.9, okay? You can find another job. So seriously, how we could embed facilitation in the hands of an organization so that it becomes part of just the way they do things around here. So that's what I'm hoping to do. I got a little bit of extra time because we started a little earlier. So what I also want to do is be interactive. I work better that way. Probably most of you out there do if you're a facilitator. And so we'll kind of stop, and if you have a question, shout it out, raise your hand, grab a microphone. You could be Oprah. Okay, question. How many of y'all have a little voice in the back of your head? And I'm not talking about the kind that needs medicine, okay? I'm talking about the kind that says, did you really put that reference on that slide that got sent to you really late by someone at that table right back there who, who's going, uh-oh. Yeah, did you get that reference on? And you know, it's like 2 or 3 in the morning, you know, and you're going, okay, did you put that on that slide so you've got the right How many of y'all have that little voice? Okay, yeah, we all do, you know. Well, you know, most of the time, sometimes it's kind of like your voice. It's like you're checking yourself, and it makes you a better facilitator or a better or administrator or a chiropractor, or because we have a very diverse group. Unfortunately, my little voice is not my own voice. It's not even my mother's voice or my staff sergeant father's voice. My voice is that of a renowned, internationally recognized psychiatrist, Dr. Lucy Van Pelt. And you just don't want to hear Lucy at 3 in the morning, okay? But I thought that I would share Lucy with you, okay? Because if I get to listen to her at 3 in the morning, you get to listen to her for the next hour. So she might be popping up every once in a while, because whenever I make a presentation, she's my kind of voice in the back that's saying, well, that didn't make any sense to me. So you'll get to hear from her every once in a while too. Okay, this was where I actually was not going to spend as much time, because I thought, oh, okay, they know this. And most of you probably do, and you can read this list and you're going, But there were a good many of novice facilitators out there. So I'm going to go through and let's talk a little bit about this. So we know that top-down initiatives are rarely sufficient to implement a new program of practice throughout a system. Yes, we're all nodding. And that's why we're in rural Oklahoma, we're in rural Arkansas, we're in rural New York State, and we're in inner city New York. Because just because they say thou shalt doesn't mean they do. And frequently the readiness to participate differs across sites and facilities, and even clinics within facilities. And that's because it requires the input of multiple stakeholders, from leadership to frontline staff, to many times the patients that are served by those programs and practices that we're trying to put into place. But what I've seen and what is documented in the literature is that there is limited ability for providers to participate in implementation activities, even though they are frequently the critical users. And this occurs even in highly resourced sites. I can go to a site like a medical center in Houston, which is highly, highly resourced, and they don't have the time to be able to actually dedicate to implementation or change activities. And I put this in red because the VA has tried to educate itself out of everything. So if you have ever worked in a VA or been associated with a VA, and there's a whole table of them over there, they know that the first thing we do is try to mandate and educate, and that just does not work. Well, you've already learned, you know what, Melinda? Do you mind getting me a mic down there, a hand mic? I'm not real good at standing still. And I don't know if you guys can hear me or not, but I can tell you I am not going to stand behind a podium. Is it on? I guess I do have to stand behind a podium. No, you're good. Oh, good, thank you. Okay, I'm not real good at standing still. You guys heard yesterday, if you were in the plenary after Allison, first of all, I don't like conceptual models. I don't do conceptual models, but I do the one that incorporates facilitation. For those of you in New York that have used CFR, facilitation is non-denominational, and facilitation works very well with CFR. It works very well with other programs and other types of frameworks. But for me, the one that makes sense is Paris. And the reason that I like Paris, or iParis, is because I can flash a slide in front of a medical director of a university or of a medical center or of a clinic, and they get it too. Now, they don't necessarily get it with all the circles, or maybe I can't tell the story with the circles. So being kind of non-reverent, I actually revised Allison's iParis, and so it looks like this to me. And what this is the same domains that she has, but it shows that context, the domains of context, innovation, and recipient factors impact successful implementation. And not only do they impact them directly, they actually interact within each other. When you have a site with a problem in contextual factors, I bet you there's a problem with the recipients that are within that context. But luckily, Allison and Jill didn't leave us alone with just the problems. They also gave us facilitation. And facilitation is used to mediate any factors that could evolve out of the contextual factors, innovation factors, recipient factors, and then can directly impact successful implementation through either mediation of these factors or leveraging of the activities that are strong in those domains. So facilitation, the way we look at it is that it's a multifaceted process, and Allison talked about that too. So is it a thing, is it a person, is it a process? It's all of those. And it bundles a set of different interventions and other strategies, and what you use varies, and we've got some data to show this, based upon the needs of the contextual factors, recipient needs, and the place that you are at in the implementation process. And it's very dynamic in nature, and it's interactive, and it's helpful and supportive, and it builds toward problem solving. The other point is it is supported by the evidence. And I have actually 2 slides when I give a longer presentation on this that simply lists the different studies and talks about the ones that have been supported by how much support there is for facilitation. That's not to say that some studies have been null, okay? There are null studies out there that it didn't work any better than some other type of quality improvement initiative. But overall, facilitation works. And we know particularly it works at sites that are unable to implement a program or practice without assistance. It's not for everybody, but it sure is for some. So we also, in our world, conceptualize facilitators as either being internal to the organization or external to the organization. And I've heard both just from my little sidebar chats. How many of you consider yourself to be embedded within an organization? Raise your hands. Yeah, so a lot of practice facilitators are part of the organization that they work with, and you work with perhaps the same sites over multiple initiatives. How many of you are external to your organization? Okay, more external. Well, let's talk a little bit about what some of the facilitation models might be, whether you're external or you're internal. And these slides were blatantly stolen from Jeff Smith. Jeff, raise your hand. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Jeff, for the beautiful slides. Okay, so this is one design, and this is actually the design that I like to use the most. You have an external facilitator, so someone who is outside of the organization that has knowledge and skills about implementation process. So usually this is an expert facilitator, someone that, you know, has been around the block a few times, they've seen a few things, not their first rodeo. And they understand quality improvement initiatives, they speak a lot of different QI languages, and they may be an expert in the program or practice that is going in. So for example, much of the early work that I did in facilitation before I became a generalist was around the integration of mental health into primary care. And, you know, as JoAnn had said, I mean, I did some of the efficacy and effectiveness studies in that area. So I kind of knew what worked, what didn't work. I'd seen a lot of different models fail. The one that I tried failed. And so I knew about what was going in intimately, and I also understood how to get it into care. I worked with someone that was internal to the organization, and that internal facilitator was someone that kind of knew the nuances of the organization, the culture, you know, who to go to, what worked, what didn't in the past, and we'll go into this in a little bit more detail. And then we would work with a site champion or a quality improvement team together as a team. And then a model that Jeff uses quite frequently is that he serves as an external facilitator, and this might be the model that many of you use, is that you work with a site champion, someone on site that is your person to connect with, or perhaps a quality improvement team, or perhaps both. But the other model that I have heard from talking to people around practice facilitation is that you can be an internal facilitator to the organization itself, understand all of those nuances, the people, the go-to people, the change agents, and work within that system with a site champion or a quality improvement team, perhaps even being the site champion or leading the quality improvement team yourself. So facilitation is very adaptable and flexible. We'll see that come up again. And how it is applied, I think, should be done thoughtfully. Because remember in the case study where the PA's practice was falling apart because no one knew their roles and responsibilities? The same thing can happen in an implementation effort if you don't at least acknowledge who's doing what and what those roles are and where the handoffs are. So one of the really sticky wickets that we face are the differences between an internal facilitator and a champion. So, thank you, Jeff. There's actually a good bit of overlap. Both reside within the local network or clinic, okay? They are familiar with the organizational, the structure, the climate, what's going on. They may, or at least you hope, how many of you have had a non-enthusiastic champion before? You pray that they are enthusiastic about the new program or practice. And they may actually be part of the local QI team, you know, who's charged to support the implementation, okay? Now, this is the word of the law according to, at this point, Joe, since I've got the clicker. But this is how we have delineated the difference between an internal facilitator and a champion, because there was a lot of confusion about that in the literature. And you'll hear a lot about, if I sound like I'm just hung up on nomenclature, it's because that's been what has been hindering us from moving forward, is we aren't speaking the same language. So I'm going to give you some definitions as we go along. For an internal facilitator, we consider that person to have dedicated time to the implementation effort. So they have the funding and they have the time and the resources to do the job. They're mentored at times by an external facilitator who has additional expertise in quality improvement and implementation strategies. And the value of this, when you have someone that is embedded within the organization, whether it's someone that comes in with that knowledge, as some of you said, you are internal, or whether it's someone that is mentored by an external facilitator, is that the institutional knowledge gained through all of those rounds of different practice changes resides within the organization. And so the organization itself becomes more of a learning healthcare environment. The difference between that and a champion is that the champion likely has little or no dedicated funding that supports their time. Frequently they're voluntold, and it's add-on responsibilities to what they're already a heavy plate, okay? So you either get the guy who's really, really good, but is already working 10-hour days because he's really, really good, or you get the new guy, okay? One of the two. You never get the middle of the ground. But hopefully they are perceived by the local group and colleagues as influential, knowledgeable about the targeted practice. This isn't always so, but you hope for that. And then they may have had experience in quality improvement efforts. So just again, trying to get nomenclatures so that we understand the difference between an internal facilitator and a champion. Okay, let's go on and let's talk a little bit about some tools and processes that can be used to support facilitation. Okay, when we go through this section, and I'll spend quite a bit of time here, and I apologize, I think, Mana, I finally got the D&I crud that came back from D&I. Let's talk about becoming a facilitator. And then I'm going to spend a good bit of time on an implementation plan. Just for, how many of you use an implementation plan, roadmap, checklist, guide? Okay, so for some it's not completely foreign. I can't work without this, so we're going to spend quite a bit of time around this. And then we're going to talk a little bit about preparing for sustainability, okay? Oh, God, what has she got to say? What do you guys think? Of course, she thinks she's going to be a great everything. But how do you become a good facilitator? Well, we know one is to take advantage of training opportunities and materials. Okay, and I put the implementation manual up because that's something that came from Mana Ritchie, who is an extraordinarily gifted implementation scientist. And that's volume 2 for those of you that that attended the training seminar that Jeff and Terry and Kathy gave. This is the bones of our training program, and it provides a wealth of information about facilitation, not just within the VA, but also outside of VA. So it brings a lot of resources together from AHRQ, from other systems as well. So one is take advantage of training opportunities like this. You can attend formal training. The other is to seek a mentor. That came up yesterday, if you remember. I mean, this is hard stuff, guys. And sometimes you feel like you may take on some of the angst and the discord that's happening at these sites. If these sites were not troubled, you would not be there. So, but it's day after day, walking into a troubled site can be very difficult. So let's borrow something from the psychologists who, when they're treating patients that are at high risk for suicide or other life-threatening events, that they actually have consultation with their colleagues. So seeking a mentor who can normalize what's going on or tell you, more importantly, this is really weird and let's figure out how you can get to the bottom of it. So seeking a mentor or forming a community of practice. And that's something I think that this group ultimately will end up doing. We're very blessed to have one already in the form of an implementation facilitation learning collaborative. I'll talk a little bit more about that Mana leads. And we're able to actually have consultation time. So somebody can say, hey, I've got a problem at a site. Can I consult? And this is attended by we have more than 100 members, inside and outside of VA, policymakers, frontline managers, as well as facilitators. So having that community of practice to come back to and vet things with can be very powerful. And then finally, apply the characteristics of a good facilitator. Well, this came up, who all was in the session when it was asked, well, what is a good facilitator? What are the characteristics of a good facilitator? I remember it was one couple of doors down, and I was in the back, and I thought, well, do I steal my own thunder? And I thought, well, and then somebody else answered it, so I didn't have to. So I'll tell you what, based on work that we have done with our in our development of our training manual by polling multiple facilitators, what we've identified as some of the core characteristics of a good facilitator. And this has come up as well, the ability to empathize and to actually understand the needs of others. This came up, I think, Joel, you did yesterday when you said, I know what that PA is doing. They are seeing patients that are well beyond their training because they're in rural Oklahoma and they are struggling. And that was a very empathetic response rather than bad leader or get your practice in order, man. I mean, your people are leaving right and left. So having the ability to empathize and to understand the situation that others might be in is number one. The other one is to be genuine and honest, even when what you're saying is not what someone wants to hear. Again, taking that same case where what the PA needs to hear is that the lack of involvement in your involvement in detailing roles and responsibilities amongst your staff is costing not only the health of the clinic, but perhaps even the health of the patients that you serve, because there's so much turnover. So let's see how we can sit together and change those things. But even when you're saying that, you end it with positive. You can change. This can change. And you give them hope. And then also flexibility and the ability to adapt to rapidly changing situations. I remember one site that I went to, and I thought that I was going to be coming in. We were putting in integrated mental health into primary care. And I honestly thought I was going to be saying my goodbyes, giving my beauty pageant wave, as I walked out the door. We were going to go over the sustainability plan, make sure that everything was okay, they didn't need anything. And I walk in, and it was actually an extremely well-attended meeting. I thought I'd be meeting with 4 or 5 folks, There were 15. The primary care mental health integration team had 2 people on one end of the table and 1 person on the other. And everybody's arms were like that. And here I bebop in, and I'm thinking I'm going to slap that plan down, and we're going to just say, good job. I ended up doing group therapy, and I am not that good at group therapy. And so, it started with, hey guys, tell me what's been going on here. Well, we never got to the nut of the problem, but we did work through some process issues. Bottom line, there'd been an EEOC complaint within that team, okay? So being able to understand when you need to not do your agenda and ensure that you're meeting the agenda and the needs of the site, that's critical, okay? Because rapidly changing can happen within one hour, one visit, one person says one thing. Be responsive in a timely manner, okay? I say 24 hours. Even if you don't know the answer to what you're doing, the answer to the question, you respond in 24 hours and you say, I don't know the answer to that, but I will find someone who does. So emails, you have to be vigilant. If you're out of office, you get you out of office, or you send them to someone else that can help answer their question. Now, I know that's not always possible, but still, that's my rule of thumb. And then you have to be innovative and resourceful. You have to be able to think around the problem, above the problem, under the problem, through the problem. Because if they could have solved this themselves, again, you would not be there. They wouldn't need you. And finally, through all of these things, you need to be energetic and enthusiastic, okay? Because they are not energetic and enthusiastic. They are beaten down. That's why you're here. So, Lucy, how do you